Dr. Carlos Robles, Dean of the University of What It Is, Central Night Vale Campus, and father to my child, has been consolidating control of the army of scientists now under his command. He has been doing the usual team-building exercises like Two Truths and a Lie, Zip Zap Zop, and mock executions. But still, there are certain leftover resentments and confused thinking from the era overseen by that villain herself, Dr. Janet Lubell. Carlos needs his team to all be on the same, team, because he has great things in store for them. Many of you were worried about how I've been after finding out that Carlos had been stuck in that terrible desert otherworld for 10 years, rather than the 1 year that I experienced. And it was tough to know that he hadn't trusted me enough to help him carry that pain. But I understand why love might make someone feel that they need to keep such terrible secrets to themselves, that some secrets are so painful that to share them is itself an act of violence. But now, we can all share the weight of his secret, can show him there is no shame in having received pain, no guilt in a harrowing past. I love my husband. I do not hold it against him even a little that he could not tell me, and I will support him in any way that I know how. In any case, understandably, he wants to know more about this world that held him for a decade of his life, and so he is mustering the considerable forces of the University of What It Is to that end. Soon, hopefully, we will know more about that terrible other place. More on science as soon as science continues to occur. Carlos and his sprawling team of scientists, split between the University of What It Is Night Vale campus and his lab in the strip mall next to Big Rico's Pizza and the Pinkberry, have been working hard on studying the desert otherworld. Carlos has never had these kinds of resources at his disposal, and so he has been getting a lot done. The team's current concentration is on creating a stable observation portal to that world. The issue, Carlos explained to me over dinner as we attempted to get our son Esteban to just try the chicken, is that the difference between the speed of our time and the other world's time creates a kind of temporal turbulence. It gets really bumpy in chronology terms when the worlds connect. I suspect that's why it was so difficult for anyone who went there to return. Please, you love chicken. We know you love chicken. Can you just have some of the chicken? The important scientist concluded. While the new resources have been helpful to Carlos, obviously, there is also a lot of responsibility to being the dean of a large research facility. He has been having to organize the HR department, figure out payment processing for paychecks, start to look into how tenure could work, and decide when and how the university might start accepting students. It's a lot to think about, even for someone who thinks a lot. I worry that Carlos's beautiful hair might start to go gray. But of course, beauty is fleeting and our looks will dissolve in time like clay into a river, and the foundation of love must be built on deeper, stronger stuff. On the other hand, I sure do love that hair. This morning we found a boy. Carlos and I took him home so he could get some food. We asked him if he was hungry. Ravenous, he said. And then he said, wow, I didn't know I knew that word. What a great word. We asked him what kind of food he likes, and he told us that he doesn't know, that he has no memory of ever having eaten before. I was born into the sunlight, already running, the boy told us as he wolfed down a turkey sandwich. My first breath was minutes ago, but this sandwich is perfect. Thank you. We offered him soda, but he was more interested in water. I'm told it is the essence of life, he said. I'd love to try it. So we offered him a big glass of water and he gulped it down. More. In all, he drank about 3 gallons of water. Now, I don't know how much water you're supposed to give a boy, but that seems like a lot of water. Incredible, whispered Carlos, and he texted some of his new science friends. Well, Carlos took me on a little field trip to a nursery where I got to see the stages of growth of a tree, and it turns out I was slightly off base on this one. Some of my facts weren't quite in order, so to speak. I'm concerned about the boy, Tamika said, and she furrowed her brow to demonstrate concern. A lost boy is a serious matter, and for his own sake, we must make a plan for how to best help him. Carlos and I agreed, of course, and we made suggestions. We must write a play about the boy, I cried. A grand play that will turn the hearts of the community toward his aid. Okay, said Tamika. No bad ideas. But the way she said it almost made it sound like my idea was bad, which it wasn't. It was artistic and thrilling. We could do DNA testing on the boy, suggested Carlos. Maybe his parents were on some sort of registry, like those ones where you send in a saliva sample and they send you a report back letting you know what astrological sign you are. Better, said Tamika, but you are both thinking of the boy as an event rather than a person. I think our first step should be to take the boy to a child therapist who might be able to talk to him about where he's from and how best we can help him. Okay, I said. No bad ideas. And I said this in a way that made it sound like her idea was bad, but this was undercut by Carlos enthusiastically agreeing with it. Yes, said Carlos, I know just the person. There was an expert childhood therapist on my staff. And so it was decided. After the session, the therapist sat down with me and Carlos and Tamika. He is holding a lot of pain, the therapist said, but he is too young to know how to put it down or even where something like that could be unburdened. Only time and life can do that for him. He needs a safe place to stay while he figures that out. Carlos and I, of course, volunteered our house. We are always happy to help, but Tamika said, no, he can come to stay with me. I think we are kindred souls. See, you've brought along the lost boy that you're fostering, the one Carlos and I found in Grove Park last month.
Yeah, he's been great, but it's also been a real learning curve for me.
Thankfully, Harrison has many friends in the scientific community, like Blake Jones, Nilanjana Sikdar, and my favorite, Carlos Robles, all of whom are helping out on the big dig with their shovels and brushes and backhoes. And Carlos found a Russian submarine beneath one of the dunes and muttered, "Another one of these things," while rolling his eyes. Carlos was walking toward Harrison, planning to give him a friendly, sympathetic embrace and maybe some cool ideas for new names like Shaka or Hieronymus or El Capitan. But Carlos tripped on a cable. He thought it was just a power cord for Nilanjana's dirt devil, but it was actually a tripwire. Listen, I know science isn't a competition, but if it were, Carlos would be the best scientist. But it's not, so we'll just settle for calling him the best person. Anyway, Carlos found some writing carved into the stone walls above the bodies. That text read, "All who disturb this grave will be cursed." Carlos warned Harrison they could be in terrible danger. Harrison replied, "Oh yeah, good catch, my guy. Hey, can you help me load these sarcophagi onto my truck?" "That's true," the boy says. "Hey, can you tell me how to get to Carlos Robles' lab?" "Sure," Lakshmi says, and points down the street to the strip mall where my dear husband and Night Vale's preeminent scientist does his important work. The boy thanks her and walks in the direction of the lab. He is holding a knife. I have warned Carlos, and hopefully he locks everything down and stays safe. I can't stand to think what could happen to him with this boy. I do not trust this boy. Carlos called. The boy is at his lab. He is holding a knife. Carlos is looking at him right now. The boy asks Carlos to show him any experiments that have to do with the other desert world. Carlos takes him to the window they have open that allows them to observe, at times, some part of that parallel universe where once Carlos was trapped. So far they have seen no movement, but they do not have comprehensive coverage. only tiny glimpses of dunes and ruins and a distant lighthouse barely visible through the sand-whipped air. The boy stares intently into that other world as though trying to discern a message in its senselessness. Then Carlos shows him the samples they have managed to bring back from that other world using probes and other highly advanced techniques like holding his breath and reaching through the portal to grab some. The boy runs the sand through his hand. "It's so beautiful," he says. "The secret of science," says Carlos, "is that so much of it is beautiful." "Thank you for showing me," the boy says. He is holding a knife. "You're quite welcome," says Carlos. "I want you to feel like you can always drop in if you need to." "Oh, that won't be necessary anymore," the boy says, and leaves. Thankfully, Carlos is quite safe, but he lost sight of the boy, and so we have no idea where the boy is now. "I know what I have to do with this knife," he says, waving the enormous dagger around. I keep smiling and nodding, but roll my chair slowly backward. Shout out to my husband Carlos for this rubber office chair mat that allows me effortless mobility around the booth. I admit I didn't appreciate it as a Valentine's Day gift at first, but he assured me it was scientifically romantic and gosh darned if he wasn't right. Great news, listeners. Not only have the salmon burgers arrived, but so has a devastatingly handsome rescuer who will surely be able to solve this situation with the aid of science, where peaceful negotiations have failed. My husband Carlos has joined us in the studio. He said he's been listening to the broadcast and getting really worried. Aw, that's sweet. It's time to run some experiments and get to the bottom of this, according to Carlos. That's such a scientist thing to say, isn't it? Too cute. With Carlos's arrival, the boy has mysteriously produced a third knife. "You just don't understand," the boy keeps saying, sweat dripping down his face as he continues to throw the knives into the air, faster and faster and faster, not even looking at them at all. "None of you understand." The boy's hand jerks wildly, and one of the knives, no, all three of the knives are now careening through the air toward us. "I want to talk to you about symbolism," Carlos says to the boy. Symbolism is a branch of hard science. It's where certain objects represent totally different things than what they actually are. Do you think it's possible that these knives you're so interested in could represent something else? That maybe you don't want to stab a real person at all, but instead you want to sever a connection to something or someone in your life or your past. Ooh, that's so smart, babe. Oh, oops, sorry. I couldn't help commenting. I'll go back to being an objective reporter. But it does make a lot of sense if you think about it. If this boy is a young Kevin, maybe he can make a fresh start and grow up to become a totally different person than the Kevin we know. Which is honestly a great idea because, no offense, but the Kevin we know, not the best. "Thank you for teaching me about symbolism," the boy says. "It's helped me understand a lot." Carlos is so smart, like I said. Speaking as an objective reporter. Anyway, the boy has broken into my husband Carlos's science lab next door to Big Rico's Pizza. He has barricaded himself in there and is attempting to use the scientific equipment in order to enter the other world and confront himself. While I am no Kevin fan, we have been at a delicate truce with Desert Bluffs for many years now, and I am worried about what this kind of provocation could mean for Night Vale's future. Carlos is trying to negotiate with the boy using a megaphone, saying things like, "Hey, there's some fragile beakers in there. Please try not to smash them. And maybe consider not causing a rift between universes." Terrible news, listeners. Carlos has confirmed that the boy has successfully opened a stable doorway into the other desert world. A state of emergency is upon us. Carlos, frantic, is tearing at the door of the lab with his bare hands, trying to get inside and stop whatever will happen next. He grabs at beakers and flasks, hurls them at his older self's head. Outside, Carlos yells, "Dang it! I said please don't shatter my beakers!" The door to Carlos's lab is opening. Someone is emerging. It is Kevin. Kevin turned, walked back into the lab, and then through the portal, returning to the desert otherworld. Carlos rushed in through the now open door. The boy was sitting against the wall, bloody, but alive. He was crying, but his face was determined. The boy spoke. "I wasn't good enough," he said. "Next time, I will be." Listeners, our son, Esteban, drew the best picture at school. Stunning, really. It's a house at sunset underneath a tall tree. You can see a family of 3 standing on the front porch next to a garden of lilacs and roses. A lone dove soars in the cloudless sky above. You could put this thing in a gallery, it's so good. Carlos and I don't have time to open an artist studio, though I did see that there's one for sale over on Galloway. It still has the original sign in the window that reads, "Nice Nicks, bail bonds, and contemporary paintings." So, Esteban's drawing won't be in a professional gallery, not yet anyway, but it was placed dead center on our fridge. And we even had patrons over to view this masterpiece. It was my sister, Abby, along with Steve and their daughter, Janice. They were coming over for a family dinner anyway, but in addition to Carlos's delicious homemade oatmeal and feta soup, they also got a free art show. Kareem N. writes, "Is that portal to the other desert still open in Carlos's lab, Cecil? How big is it? Can you fit a few people through, or is it only little kid-sized? Asking for a friend." Well, Kareem, Carlos put up a sign that says, "Do not enter portal." So while the portal occasionally appears, it would be impossible for anyone to enter it because the sign prohibits that. Now back to my son's perfect drawing. As I stood in front of the fridge, staring at Esteban's art, I noticed that the family of 3 was gone. Esteban had drawn me, Carlos, and himself happily, standing on the front porch enjoying a beautiful day, but as I looked at it now, the many contrasting colors had all faded to a dull reddish brown. The flowers were gone, and now our family was gone too. Then I noticed that they weren't gone, but inside the house, or at least 2 of them were. Their tiny, happy mouths had distorted into lopsided maws. And the 3rd member of the family, the smallest boy, I couldn't see him anywhere. Not at first, at least. And then I found him, crouched just behind the tree, which had grown even larger. And the row of owls on the branches had become one single owl. I knew that owl's face. So familiar, I could almost hear the owl in my head. It sounded like a dripping faucet. I looked back down at the figure of Esteban and realized he wasn't crouching at all. Rather, he was crawling into the base of the tree, into the earth. I wanted to shout, "No, Esteban, don't do it!" But I didn't. Because I understood then that this family of 3 was not me, Carlos, and Esteban present day. It was my mother, Abby, and me, many, many years ago. Too many. When I was the youngest. When I was Esteban's age. I ran into the living room where the rest of the family was still playing Scrabble. Carlos had guessed the name Nikolai, which was only worth 3 points, and Steve was spelling Jeanette just as I announced my discovery. The room went silent. Everyone looked confused except for Abby. I could see some understanding, mixed with a touch of annoyance in the lines around her eyes, and I asked, "Abby, do you remember anything about our dad?" She sighed and told me to sit down. I knew this wasn't appropriate for game night, but it was a story I needed to hear. Abby said that she's told me about our dad 1,000,000 times before, but I don't remember her ever telling me the story. "Abby, there's something alive inside Esteban's drawing, and I think it's our father," I said. "I need to know." "Cecil," she snapped, "please, Can we change the subject? Steve, Carlos, and Janice pretended not to hear our argument. Janice played the name Gustav and was awarded 11 points and a slight flickering of the stars. But instead of being pleased with herself, she looked concerned. "Where's Esteban?" she asked. We all froze. I gasped, seeing an empty spot at the coffee table where Esteban was only moments ago. Then we heard Esteban. He was standing at the kitchen entrance, proudly holding up his drawing. He pointed at the tree and asked, "I drew Grandpa Gershwin?" The branches weren't even visible on the paper anymore. The tree had grown so large. It even blocked a part of the house from view. I could hear the sounds of owls somewhere, like tin cans in a plastic bag. But eventually we put away Scrabble. No one correctly spelled the name of God. But Steve got closest when he guessed Pete. That was worth 693 points and a volcano eruption in Croatia, and Steve won the game. And Abby, well, Abby's Abby. We love each other, but I don't know if we like each other. Still, when Steve came along, then later Janice, then Carlos, and now Esteban, it's gotten easier between Abby and me. We have more than each other on our minds when it comes to family. Carlos and I ended up beating Steve, Abby, and Janice in Trivial Pursuit. Even better, we won it on a geography question that I got correct. The question was, if there was a continent called Blurp, how many countries would it have? I said 19 without even thinking, and I was spot on. Lucky guess. We hugged Steve, Abby, and Janice goodbye and carried our sleeping Esteban up to bed. I told Carlos I wanted to stay up a bit, and he said goodnight and gave me a kiss. I dug through our scrapbooks and albums again, looking for any photo or letter or card, anything about our dad. It felt like a full hour of scouring through these old books before I heard Carlos say, "Cecil, are you still up?" I turned around and saw that it was dawn. Carlos was in the kitchen making a salmon and blueberry smoothie to start the workday. I made myself some coffee and toast. As I did, I admired Esteban's drawing once again. In the morning light, I saw the color had returned, as had the flowers and the dove and the happy family of 3 on the porch. Carlos put his chin on my shoulder from behind and said, "He's going to be a hand-to-God artist one day, isn't he? Look at that composition. I see something new every time I look at it." I said, "Yep, me too." It wasn't a pleasant tone, impatient, annoyed. Carlos asked, "You okay, hon?" "Not really," I replied. "I thought Abby was finally going to tell me the story of my dad. She said she would. But like always, she changed the subject. I don't understand why she does that to me." Carlos stared into my eyes for several silent seconds, a concerned but compassionate stare. Finally, he said, "Oh, babe, she did. We stopped Scrabble for like 30 minutes to hear her story. To be honest, I've heard her tell it so many times to you, it's growing a bit dull. Do you not remember?" I did not.
We sucked as siblings, Cecil, but we're growing up and we're starting to suck less. I love our game nights, like tonight. I love our family outings. I love getting to see you and Carlos and Esteban so much. Now, can we please finish our game of Scrabble? It's my turn to try and spell the name of God. Let's see, off of your M, Carlos, I'll play Akimitsu. Ooh, that's worth 33 points, and loud footsteps in the attic. So close. Your turn, Cecil. Cecil? Cecil! Better not have forgotten my story again.
Esteban just adores ice cream. His favorite flavor at the moment is nacho cheese. Just like his dad. Oh, me, I mean. Carlos's favorite flavor is Cool Ranch. In real news, I'm getting word from my reliable and extremely handsome source in the science district, my husband Carlos, that the portal inside his lab is now making a soft hissing noise. He's unclear whether it's more of a power line buzz or a carbonated soft drink fizz or something closer to television static, but he is doing rigorous testing to determine the most accurate simile for the sound. As bystanders gather around to watch Carlos pour different colored liquids into different beakers, I'm getting reports that a distant figure is approaching from the other side of the portal. The figure is at first a smudge, then a shadow, then a silhouette. As it gets closer, the noise becomes louder. Carlos has now concluded that the noise most closely resembles air escaping from a punctured tire, or possibly a steam radiator, maybe a large snake. With the sound of a screaming tea kettle, he steps through the portal into Carlos's lab. Every test tube, graduated cylinder, Erlenmeyer flask shatters in an instant. The computer monitors split apart like liquid crystal fault lines. The windows explode both outward and inward. "Oh, geez," Carlos was overheard to comment. Kevin pays no attention to the scientist who is rummaging through the closet for a broom. He walks past him, through the shards of glass, out the door and onto the street. After the Kevins pass through it, Carlos pulls the plug on the portal, deciding that science, while worth some cost, is not worth every cost. Science must be in the service of humanity, never the other way around. It is a tool, not a goal. Oh, he says that the portal made a real cool zap sound as it turned off.